Thursday, August 10. Growing up into Christ. What danger threatens the Christ-like maturity of the church? Let's look at Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 14. That we should no longer be children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men, in the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. Paul perceives an environment not unlike our own, in which various ideas such as every wind of doctrine and deceitful schemes are thrust upon believers. He uses three sets of images to describe the dangers of wayward theology. 1, the immaturity of childhood, so that we may no longer be children. 2, danger on the high seas, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine. And 3, being swindled by clever people who, like gamblers, practice sleight of hand. Paul uses figuratively the Greek word kubeia, K-U-B-E-I-A, dice playing, to mean cunning or trickery, as it says in the New King James Version. Paul believes divisiveness to be an important mark of error. That which nourishes and grows the body and helps it to hold together is good, while that which depletes and divides it is evil. By turning from the divisive tactic and to that of tested and trusted teachers, as we read in verse 11, and he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, they will advance toward true Christian maturity and play effective roles in the body of Christ, as we read in Ephesians 4, verses 12 and 13, for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. And Ephesians 4, verses 15 and 16. But speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. In what ways does a healthy church function like a healthy body? Well, we've just read that. Let's read it again. But speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. In Ephesians 4, 1-16, Paul advocates for the unity of the church and recruits the addressees to foster it actively. While unity is a theological certainty, as we read earlier this week in Ephesians 4, 4-6, it does require our hard work, as verse 3 says. One way we foster unity is by being active parts of the body of Christ, we read in verses 7-16. Each of us is a part of the body and should contribute to its health and growth. We all should also benefit from the work of apostles, prophets, evangelists, and pastor teachers, as we read in verse 11. These, like ligaments, tendons, and every joint of verse 16, have a unifying function, helping us grow up together into Christ, who is the head of the body, as we read in verses 13 and 15. So to finish today, what are some of the winds of doctrine blowing through our church today, and how can we stand firm against them? Bring your answer to class on Sabbath. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.